On today's episode of Locked On Oilers, Klim Kostin on the first line, a players-only meeting, and the Edmonton Oilers Prospect Report. All that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to the Locked On Oilers podcast. I am your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. As mentioned on today's episode, we're going to start off with a preview of the Edmonton Oilers game against the New York Islanders as Klim Kostin is on the top line against the Isle. We'll talk about that in just a second, but also on today's episode, a players-only meeting called by the Edmonton Oilers. So I give my piece on what's really going on with the Oilers and just how bad things might actually be for this Edmonton Oilers team. And to wrap up today's episode, we are going with our Edmonton Oilers Prospect Report with the CHL players, one of which will be returning from the World Juniors right away here. All that much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Where we are going to start off today is with the Edmonton Oilers and the New York Islanders as the Islanders come into town against the Oilers tonight, a 7 o'clock puck drop at Rogers Place. Nice little easy game, I'm sure, for the Oilers. No, a lot of very good away side as well in the Islanders. We'll talk about the Islanders in just a second, but a lot of shifting around the lineup for the Edmonton Oilers, especially with the forwards in this one, including Klim Kostin getting some looks at the top line with Connor McDavid. Yes, that's right. Let's take a look at the lineup here. Klim Kostin on the first line with Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins going on to the second line with Leon Draisaitl and Kyler Yamamoto. Now, the thing is that those were the top two lines, and the focus at practice, especially yesterday, not so much today, more of an optional skate today for the Edmonton Oilers. But the focus for the Oilers was on the top two lines, so we aren't 100% sure of the bottom six, but we can assume that the bottom six will look like this. Warren Foegele with Ryan McLeod and Jesse Puljujärvi, and Dylan Holloway will be with Derek Ryan and Matthias Janmark. The D stays the same for the Oilers as Darnell Nurse lines up next to Cody Ceci, Brett Kulak and Tyson Barrie, and Philip Broberg alongside Evan Bouchard. We will talk about that pairing in just a second. But starting in net for the Edmonton Oilers tonight against the Islanders, Jack Campbell. As he made 3 saves, he only needed to make 3 saves as 3 shots were fired against him in relief of Stuart Skinner against the Seattle Kraken. And hopefully the Edmonton Oilers are trying to get a little more out of Jack Campbell each and every time. We'll see if he can get out of a little bit of a funk here, playing a difficult team that's really good on the road, who has had the Edmonton Oilers number for the last couple of years. We'll see if he can start going here. But I want to talk about, obviously, Kostin on the first line, but I also want to talk about Philip Broberg and Evan Bouchard, as they have been playing together for the last couple of games. I've seen a lot of people start mentioning it's time to break them up. I saw it was Bob Stauffer on the Edmonton Oilers broadcast against the Seattle Kraken, said that he would put Bouchard with Nurse and Broberg with Ceci. I would be behind that. Obviously, you are then separating two defensemen or two defensive pairings, that are struggling at least to get to the level that they should be playing at. Darnell Nurse gives Evan Bouchard a little bit of a mattress or leniency when it comes to making a mistake. He's a very hard skater in Darnell Nurse, and would really probably whip Evan Bouchard into shape a little bit defensively. I know there's a lot of conversations around how Darnell Nurse plays in his own end, but you cannot deny that he is a very hard player in his own end. And especially the last couple of games, Darnell Nurse has really played very well for the Edmonton Oilers. Now, Cody Ceci with Broberg would also give a real veteran with Broberg, a guy who's kind of similar in Broberg's fashion, where he's not really too panicky with the puck. He's very calm. He's very calculated and collected. There you go. The words are hammering out of my mouth today. But that would give another cushion for Philip Broberg as well, to learn from a veteran, a guy who's a shutdown defenseman, very responsible in his own end as well, in Cody Ceci. So not a bad idea. But for now, the defensive pairings stay the same, but the forward lines don't. As mentioned, Klim Kostin getting a shot on the top line with Connor McDavid. Initially, when people started suggesting this, it seemed like one of those haha funny Twitter joke type things. And now Klim Kostin, top six, playing with Connor McDavid. And we will get to a little later on, he's surprisingly one of the top scorers, other than McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent-Hopkins, and Hyman, for the Edmonton Oilers. Is one of the best depth scoring forwards for the Edmonton Oilers. He's a first-round pick for a reason, so let's go out there and show that you can do it. Honestly, of all the big men who have played with Connor McDavid and Milan Lucic, Pat Maroon, Zach Kassian, Klim Kostin might be the best hockey player, best skater for sure, that has played with Connor, of the bigger guys. The kid can skate, the kid can hit, he will go out there and go into the dirty areas, get the puck to Connor McDavid, and just stand in front of the net. Jay Woodcroft said today, Klim Kostin is at his best when he's playing a north-south simple game. And that's all he needs to do next to Connor McDavid. He will get him the puck if he's open, and the rest will do and will be history, or whatever the words they use. He will be good with Connor McDavid. He will be fine with Connor McDavid as long as he plays his game. Stay within his head. Don't go, oh my goodness, I'm playing with Connor McDavid, I have to do this and that and the other thing. No. Go out there, play your game, and Connor McDavid will find you. That is it. Plus, you also get the cushion of also having Zach Hyman, who is basically the Robin to McDavid's Batman when it comes to being 5-on-5 on lines. I know you can say that's Leon Draisaitl, but let's be real, that's Batman and Batman. But Zach Hyman has been fantastic for the Edmonton Oilers this year, and Zach Hyman is very similar in the way of Klim Kostin, or at least vice versa, when it comes to keeping the puck on his stick. He's very difficult to get off the puck, and you hear even Klim Kostin, I believe it was, saying that he learns from Zach Hyman in puck protection. A couple of guys who value protecting the puck next to a guy who is the best in the world with the puck. So we'll see how things work out for the Edmonton Oilers against the New York Islanders. And we haven't gotten to the Islanders lines yet. So let's take a look at the Islanders side for now. Josh Bailey is lining up alongside Matt Barzal, and Casey Cizikas is on the first line for the Islanders. Anders Lee on the second line with Brock Nelson, and Hudson Fasching getting a look on the second line for the New York Islanders. A surprising little prospect for the Islanders that has been tuning in a little bit for the Islanders this year. Zach Parise on the third line alongside J.G. Pajot and Anthony Beauvillier, and the fourth line of Matt Martin, Aturatu, and Cal Clutterbuck. Very interesting line to watch out for, too. Some people said you have to basically remember from, I believe it was 2 years ago now, Aturatu, one of the top prospects going into his 2020 draft year, I believe. He almost has become a little bit of a Brad Lambert type, not when it comes to playing, but more of the, he's a top 3 player for sure, and then ends up getting selected in the second round by the Islanders. A lot of people saying this is an absolute steal for the Islanders, and now he's playing in the NHL for the Islanders. Has had a pretty good year down in the AHL so far and getting a real shot with the team. Now a player to watch out for the Islanders tonight. The defense looks like this for the Islanders. Alexander Romanov is lining up next to Noah Dobson on the top pairing for the Islanders. Very interesting pairing for the Islanders, as Romanov was acquired at the draft from the Montreal Canadiens, so it's clearly panned out for the Islanders there, and a very fun, honestly, top pairing between him and Noah Dobson, one of the most underrated prospects in the NHL today. I guess he's not a prospect anymore. Obviously a top pairing defenseman for a very good New York Islanders team. Also on the back end, Wotherspoon lines up with Ryan Pulock for the Islanders, and Sebastian Aho, no, not that one, lines up next to Scott Mayfield on the third pairing for the Islanders. Ilya Sorokin getting the start for the Islanders there. Sorokin was the first goaltender off the ice for the Islanders at practice, so it is looking like he will get the start. The last 5 games for the Islanders looking like this. They only have 1 loss over the last 5 heading into this one. That one came against Seattle. Their other 4 wins coming against the Vancouver Canucks just the other night, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Florida Panthers. Maybe you can make the argument that not the best couple of teams there, but taking advantage of the friendly schedule, we can say, and hopefully the Edmonton Oilers are looking at that going, actually maybe hopefully the Oilers aren't looking at that and going, they only beat good or bad teams. Either way, 7 o'clock puck drop between the Oilers and the Islanders at Rogers Place tonight. We will talk about that game tomorrow, but the Edmonton Oilers within their locker room have been discussing the past couple of games specifically, but had a players-only meeting between the players, obviously, of the Edmonton Oilers. And you don't normally do that when things are going well. So what is going wrong for the Edmonton Oilers, and why are we at this point in the season? We will talk about that in just a second. But first, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every sport and every amateur and professional league out there. I'm talking pro football, college bowl season is going, basketball, and yes, I know the World Cup is over, but the Premier League is going on. Chelsea is still losing. They're 10th in the Premier League. What are we doing? Do you think Chelsea is going to get a Champions League spot? We'll see. Either way, you can find all those lines at BetOnline. Plus, if you love sports podcasts, which if you're listening to this one, you probably do, you can find those at BetOnline as well. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, make sure you tune in to Locked On NHL Prospects. Yes, NHL Prospects. We got a show for that. Your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading up to the NHL draft, plus NHL draft rankings and top prospect comparisons for every team. Locked On NHL Prospects, available on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. Alrighty, let's move on here as a lot of interesting news coming out of the Seattle game for the Edmonton Oilers. And this segment on today's show is going to be a little bit more, not necessarily a rant, but more of a vent, maybe. Let's say a vent. If the Edmonton Oilers can have a players-only meeting, we too can have a fans-only meeting and have a little bit of a venting session. So, it came out that during the second period of the game, or second intermission, of the game against the Seattle Kraken, Jay Woodcroft tore a strip out of the Edmonton Oilers and went near ballistic during the intermission and laid into the Edmonton Oilers. Rightfully so, giving up that lead, playing very nonchalant, and would go on to lose that game in kind of an ugly fashion. It also came out that, over the last couple of days, the Edmonton Oilers have had a players-only meeting. As I mentioned at the start of the show, you don't do that when things are going well. What's wrong with the Edmonton Oilers? Here's some things I pulled up for the Edmonton Oilers here. The Edmonton Oilers have the best power play in the NHL at 32.1%. It's actually on pace to be the greatest power play in NHL history. The Edmonton Oilers are first in scoring when it comes to playing at 5-on-4, so on the power play. And then 20th when it comes to goals for at 5-on-5. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl at 5-on-5 are only at a 1 goals for, which is not fantastic. Plus minus, I should mention. So that is kind of more of the how often are you on the ice for a goal? Well, plus minus. I'm not going to talk down to you on what plus minus really is, but that's not good. And I'm not putting this on Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. In fact, quite the contrary. Connor McDavid has 33 goals on the year, leads the league. Leon Draisaitl has 21 goals on the year. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has 19, and Zach Hyman has 17. The next closest to Zach Hyman in goals is Darnell Nurse with 6. After Darnell Nurse, the next closest and one of the top scorers for the depth scoring for the Edmonton Oilers is Derek Ryan. Let's continue on here. Evander Kane, who hasn't played for numerous months now, is also on that list with 5, but at the time is pretty decent. So we'll move on from that. Klim Kostin in 23 games now has 5 goals. Tyson Barrie has 5 goals. Warren Fogle has 4. Evan Bouchard has 3, a player who is supposed to be a top offensive weapon for the Oilers. Jesse Puljujärvi has 3. Matthias Janmark has 3. Ryan McLeod has 3. Brett Kulak has 2. And I'm just now getting to Kyler Yamamoto at 2. We talk about the defense all the time, and we can talk about the defense because, let's be real, it has been atrocious in their own end. And a lot of that has to do with A, communication, B, a lack of movement on the back end, and C, really the lack of ability on the back end. The Edmonton Oilers let the other team cycle, their opposition cycle, all day long in their own end. The Edmonton Oilers are one of the worst teams in the league when it comes to shots against per 60 minutes, and one of the worst teams in the league when it comes to shots for per game. So you're letting your goaltender out to dry. And then you allow this fan base to get absolutely absolutely sick on the goaltender every single time, despite the fact that you're probably allowing 40, 45, 50 shots in that game, and the goaltender is coming out with ice bags going, I should have had a better game. No, the players in front of you should have had a better game. The players in front of you should be going out there and blocking shots and preventing the fact that maybe our goaltender shouldn't be working as hard as he is right now. Why, consistently, is the goaltender the best penalty killer for the Edmonton Oilers? Yes, you do want your best penalty killer being your goaltender, but not every penalty kill. Not every single time you are shorthanded, you are praying that your goaltender is going to bail you out. And why is he having to bail you out? Because you fail at ending the cycle of the opposition. You refuse to lay the body on anybody in your own end. You puck watch like a World Juniors hockey team. You look like junior hockey players in your own end. You just sit there, watch the guy with the puck, and let everybody else around you go and get into open areas, get into passing areas, and put the puck past the poor goaltender. It's a shame at some of the play the Edmonton Oilers have in their own end. Sometimes you sit there and just go, this game is boring, because it's the exact same thing happening at every single zone entry. They get the puck in, they start their cycle, get about 4 shots in the Edmonton Oilers' end. The Edmonton Oilers almost get the puck out, but fail to do that as well. We can talk about zone exits too. It's sad. For a professional hockey team, for a team who is going out there every single night with the expectation that they are probably going to be the favorites. They're probably going to be the favorites because 97, Connor McDavid, and 29, Leon Draisaitl play for this team. Other than that, nobody else is performing. The fact that Klim Kostin has to come in on the first line and for this fan base to rejoice and go, oh, thank goodness, is a shame. How many players on this team had 10 plus goals last year? How many players last year for the Edmonton Oilers had 20 plus goals last year? 4 players. 4 players have double-digit goals for the Edmonton Oilers this year. And they're all the usual suspects. Kyler Yamamoto has 2 goals this year. Jesse Puljujarvi has 3 goals this year. These guys signed for $3+ million. Well, $3 million for Puljujarvi and 3.1 for Kyler Yamamoto. And both these guys combined have 5 goals. Guys who expected to be in the top 6 every single game. Now we're going into a game in January with Klim Kostin on the top line. You have to remove the spine of the team because Kyler Yamamoto refuses to score. And now Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, you have to pile Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on the second line again because you lack the ability to give any sort of reception to depth scoring. We haven't even talked about the last 5 games for the Oilers. We haven't even talked about the last couple of home games for the Edmonton Oilers. A 5-2 loss against Seattle when they led 2-0. A 2-1 loss against Winnipeg when they limited Winnipeg to 17 shots. Jack Campbell played very well in that game, and you couldn't bail him out. The only guy who scored in that game for the Oilers was Klim Kostin. You get a win in Seattle, the big win against Seattle, the big win against Calgary 2-1, and then other than that, it's just been absolutely disgusting. 5-2 against the Canucks where they blew a lead there. Did get a win in Dallas, but then 4-3 against Nashville, an overtime loss against a team that you have had the absolute number, address, and postal code the entire time against the Predators. A 4-3 loss at home against the lowly Anaheim Ducks, where they were just a sad showing by the Edmonton Oilers. And a 4-3 loss against the St. Louis Blues at home, where they led as well. We have talked about mature third periods for the Edmonton Oilers. You know who had a mature third period against the Edmonton Oilers? The Seattle Kraken. A team who has been around for what? Less than 100 games in the NHL? Just now over 100 games in the NHL? You have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and you lack the ability to go out there and play good hockey. I don't get it. I don't get it. You need to make a move. You need to get Evander Kane back. I understand that's a big loss for the Edmonton Oilers. But you inside the locker room need to start figuring it out. This is a good team with good players on. Figure it out. Let's move into the Edmonton Oilers Prospect Report, as maybe the Edmonton Oilers have some prospects who can figure it out on the ice for the Oilers. Either way, we will talk about that in just a second. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal, as you take a look at this belly, is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me and you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, yeah, I know taste is very important, then man, I have got the thing for you. You've got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they are so delicious and plus they're good for you as well. Being delicious and good for you is not easy, but that is exactly what Built has done with their Built Bars, and it's perfect for your New Year's resolution. So what makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, that's right, real chocolate. And they come in undeniably just delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie. Oh, that one, I love that one. The churro one is classic, but the peanut butter brownie, you can lather me in peanut butter. And coconut almond as well they have there. But I'm not sure how Built does it. Either way, these bars taste like a candy bar, plus all while maintaining amazing macros. That's even better when they are healthy too. Only 130 calories, 40 grams, or 4 grams of sugar, not 40 grams, oh my goodness, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now, you don't have to wait to get your box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at Built.com. But now, you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club as well. Just get your Built Bars now. Why not? What are you doing? Either way, let's move into the Edmonton Oilers Prospect Report, as the Edmonton Oilers have some pretty interesting prospects right now playing in the CHL, and one is currently playing at the World Juniors. Well, by the time this is coming out, he will be in the midst of his game against the Czechians in the World Cup. I was going to say World Cup final. Can you tell I was just watching the World Cup? In the World Juniors gold medal game, that's Reed Schaefer, as you know, in 6 games so far with Canada. No goals, 1 assist. 1 point, is I'm sure you've been watching and keeping up with the Canadians right now. What a tournament they have been having. A very interesting tournament, that's for sure. Great win against the Americans too. But let's get into the players who are currently playing in the CHL right now, starting off with the one in the OHL in Ontario, and that is Matvei Petrov. Petrov is just continuing his absolutely fantastic season in his last 4 games since returning from the Christmas break. 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points in 4 games. 6 points. One of those included a 4-point game against Oshawa where he had a goal and 3 assists there. So far this year, Matvei Petrov has in 34 games, 12 goals, 34 assists, 46 points on the second best team, not only in the Eastern Conference of the OHL, but in the OHL itself. The North Bay Battalion, I always want to call them the Brampton Battalion, but the North Bay Battalion so far this year have a 24-10-1 record, actually technically 10-0-1 record, their loss coming in a shootout earlier this year. So far in the last 12 games as well for Matvei Petrov, 3 goals, 20 assists in the last 12 games. Very good season so far for him. He looks to keep it going in his next game tonight against the Oshawa Generals, and we both know, as mentioned, what happened the last time North Bay and Oshawa met up. 4 points for Petrov there. Let's move west now to the WHL, where the Edmonton Oilers have 2 prospects, well, 3 technically with Reed Schaefer, but 2 currently playing since the end of the Christmas break. First being Max Warner, the former 7th round pick of the Edmonton Oilers, signed an entry-level deal with the Oilers during training camp, and this year he is just exceeding expectations. Career highs in goals, assists, and points. He just scored his 7th goal of the season, which is now his career high the other night. In his last 4 games, a goal, 2 assists, 3 points, and so far this year in 29 games, 7 goals, 19 assists, 26 points. From a defenseman who's like 6'7". He is going to be one to watch. I saw somebody on Twitter mention him as a player kind of like Colton Parayko. Maybe. Probably a bit of a stretch and a lot to put on the kid's shoulders, but a good big defenseman and mobile. He can shoot the puck. He can move the puck. He can hit, because I believe he got suspended earlier this year for a nasty hit as well. I believe he got suspended like 3 games too. So a very, very exciting player for the Edmonton Oilers coming up. He is projected to end the season with 61 games played, 15 goals, 40 assists, good for 55 points. From a defenseman, an Edmonton Oilers prospect. That's exciting. His next game against the Edmonton Oil Kings, because remember he is in the WHL, comes on Tuesday. Next Tuesday, yes, January 10th. That is a 7 o'clock puck drop at Rogers Place. Now, the Edmonton Oil Kings are not exactly the best this year. That is the reason why I am telling you, when Warner is in town, to go to the Oil Kings games, because that is when you want to go watch the Oil Kings, when there's an exciting player on the other side. Maybe a Connor Bedard as well. The Oil Kings so far this year are 4-32-1. Yes, 4 wins. 4 wins this year for the Oil Kings. A very heavy fall from grace. In fact, the fun fact about this is that even though the Edmonton Oil Kings are not only the worst team in the WHL, but in the CHL, despite the fact that they are the worst team in the CHL, this is all for naught, because they don't own their first round pick this year. That pick was traded in the Caden Gooley trade. Yeah. So all of this is for nothing. Prince Albert, I believe he played for Prince Albert, as Prince Albert will probably get first overall in the CHL draft. That is pretty embarrassing. But either way, as well, the Edmonton Oilers also have another prospect in the WHL, and that is Jake Chiasson. We remember the story earlier this year of Jake Chiasson helping a man off a bridge with his teammates, I should say, as helped a man in need. Just a fantastic story of a couple of selfless young men. But right now, the talk for Jake Chiasson on the ice is whether or not he will be traded in the WHL trade deadline or at the WHL trade deadline. As Brandon hasn't had a great year so far, they currently sit 8th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 15-17, 4-0. The 4 overtime losses coming in overtime, no shootout losses. But he's having a very good year. It sounds like there might be a move for him as he's a very effective player for this team. 35 games played for Chiasson, 10 goals, just scored his 10th goal the other night. 15 assists for him this year for 25 points. And in the last 5 games, a little bit of a slump, only 1 goal and 1 point for him there, but he looks to improve on that tomorrow night when the Brandon Wheat Kings play the Portland Winterhawks. Yeah. That's going to be a very interesting one, too. Portland's a little bit, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit middle of the table here. But the next time Brandon plays the Oil Kings, January 22nd at Rogers Place on a Sunday, so 4 p.m. puck drop. Little early afternoon action. Go watch an Edmonton Oilers prospect. Probably beat the Edmonton Oil Kings, but either way, Edmonton Oilers prospects having a good old time in the WHL and the CHL overall this year. Shout out Matvei Petrov for not playing in the WHL, but you know what I mean. Either way, let's wrap it up there as the Edmonton Oilers face off against the New York Islanders tonight at Rogers Place, 7 o'clock puck drop here in Edmonton. Hopefully at the end of that one, we can all play La Bamba, baby.